Great stories, Bruno Mars. Peter Gene Hernandez is one of the greatest singers today and a Grammy winner. Many would not know who it would be by this name, but this is the real name of Bruno Mars. Born in Honulu, Hawaii, United States, son of Peter Hernandes and Bernadette Hernandes, a Puerto Rican and a Filipina. Peter is called Bruno since childhood by his father, because he thought he was small and similar to the fighter Bruno Sammartino. The surname Mars was adopted by the singer, so that he had an impressive stage name. Despite his short stature, Bruno Mars has already made millions with records and shows. But its start was modest. Raised by a family of artists, he grew up and played in the band as his father. The attraction for the spotlight goes back to childhood. At just 4 years old, Bruno Mars was already in the family's doo-wop band, led by his father, which also included his mother, some uncles and his older brother and sister. Even though he was not the only talented musician in the family, the older brother, Eric, is today the drummer of the Hooligans, a band that accompanies Bruno. Mars was already visible. With only 4 years, he had a participation in the film Honeymoon in Las Vegas imitating Elvis Presley and was interviewed by MTV. This is what is called starting early. The performances in several Hawaiian clubs and bars allowed the family to live well. Until Bruno Mars turned 11, they all lived in a large house in Kahala, a bustling neighborhood in the capital of Hawaii, Honolulu. His father had a modest amount of 7 Cadillacs, but Bruno's luxuries were different. He had a room the size of most people's living rooms, a family friend, Bobby Brooks Wilson, told Rolling Stone magazine. He said more, "I had a small drum kit, a small guitar, a small piano. I used to take me there to say, Bobby, look. I can play this." When Bruno Mars was between 11 and 12 years old, everything started to change. The parents decided to divorce. His younger sisters, there are 4, went to live with his mother and Bruno went to live with his father. There, he lived a difficult period. On the one hand, the band ended, it was a family band. So the dynamic has changed. The parents sold the house where Bruno Mars lived, and in which he had an imposing room, and the father lost all the business he had. He moved to Los Angeles after college to become a musician. The departure for Hollywood took place before he was of age. Bruno Mars was 17 years old when he finished high school at the public school President Theodore Roosevelt, in Honolulu, and headed to Los Angeles where one of his sisters, Jaime Kailani, already lived. The goal was to excel in music and the last few years had contributed to her continuing to gain experience. During high school, she combined concerts given with elements of her family, no longer all, due to her parents' divorce, in spaces like the Hotel Ilaikai to performances with a band he formed with friends from high school, the Schoolboys. Mars, however, remained just an interpreter, playing covers of great pop rock hits. It was in Los Angeles that Bruno adopted the nickname Mars, for no particular reason. He found it funny, and since publishers didn't want it to sound too Latin, the best thing might be to have a nickname from another planet, since the term means Mars. Being very confident, some critics exchanged this word for arrogant. Having had musical success and success with girls from an early age also contributed to Bruno thinking he could be from another planet. Bruno Mars even signed with Motown Records, but the contract would be terminated a year later without any editing. Bruno Mars did small shows and presentations. Joined friends Philip Lawrence and Ari Levine and created the production company Smeezingtons, after many difficulties in establishing themselves in the beginning. But then with the Smeezingtons trio, Bruno Mars slowly started to gain notoriety. But the decision to form the group took time, and it was only 2 years after he left Motown Records that Bruno Mars would sign the contract that changed his life. It was with the great publisher Atlantic Records, which he arrived through partner Philip Lawrence, who introduced him to a scout from the publisher, Aaron Bashuk. It was in this group that Bruno Mars stopped being just an interpreter and learned to compose. The trio composed the instrumental moments of the songs, as well as choruses and choirs, leaving some blank spaces for singers and rappers to complete. Right Around, which they wrote for rapper Flo Rida, in 2008, was the first big hit, It became the single most heard in the USA. But the group also produced the theme "Fuck You" for Seal Loger. The solo route was starting to become the most logical step to take next. One day, Bruno Mars went to the offices of Atlantic, the publisher with whom he had a contract. He wanted to show that he could also compose future solo hits and showed two new songs that he thought were good for the publisher's executives, "Nothing on You" and "Billionaire." The first would be recorded and edited by rapper and singer B.O.B., the second by Travie McCoy. For both, Bruno Mars, co-author, would be invited to sing. Bruno Mars was out. And what came next, the public is more aware. 2010 was the year that the singer finally launched. The first EP, "It's Better If You Don't Understand," released in May, would be a kind of test tube for the first album. Launched in October, "Doo-wops and Hooligans" would reach number 3 in the American sales ranking, the result of a very solid set of songs that included some of the hits that Bruno Mars sings: "Live Today," "Just the Way You Are," "Grenade," "The Lazy Song," and "Marry You," for example. The formula was already found, a mix of songs full of funk and groove, inspired by the sonority of James Brown, Michael Jackson and Prince, but also by the modern production of pop magicians like Timbaland and Pharrell Williams, with romantic ballads full of honey. The latter would begin to be phased out gradually, in favor of the more danceable themes. Perhaps an effect of the success of Uptown Funk, the song that Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson made together, that the latter edited and that became one of the greatest hits of this century. The debut album only came in October 2010, "Doo-wops and Hooligans," by Atlantic and Elektra Records. The album reached the top 10 in 6 countries, including Brazil, France, and Canada. The single "Just the Way You Are" stayed on the Billboard Hot 100 for 4 weeks, while "Grenade" was in first place in 15 countries. Mars participated in the song "Nothing on You," by the American rapper B.O.B. The single hit the charts in England and the USA. Then came another song, "Billionaire," composed by musician Travie McCoy. His participation was decisive for the song to reach the 4th place on the Billboard Hot 100. These works won U.S. platinum certificates. Bruno Mars has won approximately 12 awards and dozens of nominations. He was nominated for the Grammy Awards in 4 categories, winning Male Pop Vocal Performance. Bruno Mars was often compared to Michael Jackson, for his multifaceted and versatile character. His musical style has strong characteristics of Black American music, with hip hop and rap as examples. Thank you for watch. Subscribe to the channel.